Today's video is a continuation of what we learned yesterday. It involves special cases of absolute value equations. So yesterday we learned how to solve absolute value equations, and today we're going to deal with some special cases when we solve absolute value equations. So let's take a look at example 1. In example 1 we have the absolute value of x plus 3, and then outside the absolute value bars we have plus 4 is equal to 4. So just like we said yesterday, you need to get the absolute value expression all by itself. That means I need to subtract 4 from both sides. And when I do that, I have the absolute value of x plus 3 is equal to 0. Well, normally we would write a positive and a negative case, but there is no such thing as positive 0 or negative 0. So when that happens, when you get it equal to 0, that means that there is only going to be one solution. So we would just continue to solve the case, or solve the equation, just writing the one case, x plus 3 is equal to 0. And so we would subtract 3 from both sides. And our solution is that x would equal negative 3. So yesterday, all of our problems had 2 answers, but if it equals 0, then there's only one answer or one solution. And of course, we can plug it back in to make sure that it works. If I put in a negative 3 for x, I end up getting the absolute value of 0 plus 4 is equal to 4, and so of course 4 equals 4. We know it works, we did it correctly. So this next example, I would like you guys to try on your whiteboards. We've got negative 8 equals the absolute value of x plus 2, and then outside the absolute value bars we have a minus 8. So on your whiteboards, try doing this one. Please pause the video now. Okay, so for this example, you had to add 8 to both sides to isolate the absolute value expression. And when you do that, we get 0 is equal to the absolute value of x plus 2. So that means that x plus 2 would have to equal 0, and we subtract 2 from both sides. And so we get that x is equal to negative 2. So hopefully that's what most of you got on your whiteboards. All right, so this next one is for your notes. In example 2, we have 5 is equal to the absolute value of x plus 2, then outside of it plus 8. So again, I want to isolate my absolute value expression, get that alone. So that means I need to get rid of that positive 8. So to get rid of that, I'm going to subtract 8 from both sides. And when I do that, I get that negative 3 is equal to the absolute value of x plus 2. Well, what did we learn about absolute values? An absolute value is always positive. The absolute value is always positive. So if the absolute value is always positive, is it possible for the absolute value of x plus 2 to equal a negative number? No, that's impossible. So that means that there is no solution. Or of course, you can write it with the null set. So no solution, or you can write it as the null set, the empty set, a 0 with a slash through it. All right, so this next one is going to be for your whiteboards. Okay, so we have 3 plus the absolute value of x plus 4 is equal to 0. So go ahead and pause the video now. All right, so to isolate the absolute value here, x plus 4, we need to subtract 3 from both sides. And when I do that, I'm left with the absolute value of x plus 4 is equal to negative 3. So because I've got that negative sign, alarm bells should be going off. Absolute values can't be negative, so that means that there is, in fact, no solution. All right, let's take another look here at an example. On this one, I've got 2 minus the absolute value of 2x minus 5 equals 7. So I want to isolate my absolute value expression here. I don't want anything else there, so I've got to get rid of that positive 2. The opposite of positive 2 is negative 2, so I subtract 2 from both sides. Now I have the absolute value, a negative sign outside the absolute value, then 2x minus 5, and that's equal to 5. Okay, now like we said yesterday, you do not distribute when you have absolute values. So how can I get rid of that negative sign? Instead of distributing, I divide. So I divide both sides. Remember, we assume that that's a 1 there. So I divide by negative 1, and now I have the absolute value of 2x minus 5 is equal to negative 5. And so alarm bells should be going off again. I've got a negative number there. Something positive can't possibly equal something negative, so there is no solution again. Okay, so now we're going to practice some problems on your whiteboards. So as we go through these, we'll have the problem. The video will be paused while you work the problems, and then when you turn the video back on, you'll be able to see the solution. So the first one we're going to do on your whiteboards is right here. 16 is equal to 7 times the absolute value of x plus 3, and then outside plus 30. So get the absolute value expression all by itself. Pause the video now. All right, so your first step, you should have subtracted 30 from both sides. And then you get negative 14 is equal to 7 times the absolute value of x plus 3. At this point, I'm getting suspicious, but I'll go ahead and keep going. If I divide both sides by 7, I am left with negative 2 is equal to the absolute value of x plus 3. And so an absolute value cannot equal a negative number, so that means this one is no solution. Hopefully most of you got that. All right, the next one for your whiteboards is right here. 2 times the absolute value of x minus 7 is equal to 14. Isolate the absolute value. Go ahead and pause the video now. Okay, hopefully you did not distribute. On this one you had to divide. So we'll divide both sides by 2. And then I have the absolute value of x minus 7 is equal to 7. So I need to write the positive and negative cases. X minus 7 might equal positive 7, or x minus 7 could equal negative 7. For both of them, you would add 7 to both sides. And so your answer that you should have gotten was x equals 14 or 0. Okay, let's try another one on your whiteboards. We've got negative 6 plus the absolute value of x minus 4 is equal to negative 6. Pause the video now. All right, so your first step on this one, you should have added 6 to both sides, then you get the absolute value of x minus 4 is equal to 0. That means there's only going to be one solution on this one, so x minus 4 is equal to 0, and so you should have gotten x equal to 4. All right, next problem for your whiteboards. Negative 2 times the absolute value of x plus 3 is equal to negative 16. Pause the video now. Okay, so hopefully you remember, don't distribute, you have to divide. So if I divide both sides by negative 2, then I'm left with the absolute value of x plus 3 is equal to positive 8. So at first it might have looked like this was going to be no solution, but when I divided out the negative 2, I have a positive number. So now I have to write the positive and negative cases. That means that x plus 3 equals 8, or x plus 3 equals negative 8. And so we subtract 3 from both sides on both of those equations. And I get that x is equal to 5, or negative 11. That concludes the video. Thank you.